This is Wilmington Weekly with Matt Perky. This is a new podcast, and this is the first episode. If you found your way here, it's probably because you care about what happens in the city, or at least you want a better understanding of how local government actually works. That's the reason I'm doing this. For the last 10 years, I've served on city council. That chapter wrapped up at the end of 2025. When that happened, I expected it to feel like a clean break. What I didn't expect was how aware I'd remain of the gap that exists between what council does and what most residents experience. The agendas are public, the meetings are recorded, none of it's secret, and yet, unless you've spent time on the inside, working with the process, a lot of what happens can feel confusing, incomplete, or even disconnected from the headlines that come afterward. So this podcast exists to help close that gap. But before we walk through what's on the agenda, I want to be clear about my role. I'm no longer on council. I'm not speaking for the city, for council as a body, or for any individual council member. I'm also not here to push specific outcomes or to run a shadow version of City Hall from behind a microphone. What I am trying to do is to explain the process, add some context, and help people understand what's happening and maybe why it matters. If you've ever looked at a council agenda and felt like you were missing the secret decoder ring, this podcast is for you. If you care about what happens in the city but don't have the time or patience to decode municipal language on your own, this podcast is also for you. And if you've ever shown up to a meeting or read about one afterward and thought you wished maybe you had more understanding going in, you were exactly who I'm trying to help. The plan for this show is pretty simple. On weeks where there's a council meeting scheduled, I'll release a short episode on Wednesday ahead of the meeting. Once the agenda is made public, I'll walk through what's on it, explain what the items actually mean in plain language, and flag where there may be real discussion or discussions worth paying attention to, and decisions made by council. Then, on off weeks, or after a meeting has taken place, I'll put out a longer Sunday or Monday episode that looks back at what actually happened, what mattered, and what may have longer term implications. Those episodes will be more conversational and reflective, focused on context, process, and why certain outcomes unfolded the way they did. Since tomorrow night is the first regularly scheduled City Council meeting of 2026, feels like a good place to start. So the meeting will start with the usual opening items. There will be a roll call, pledge of allegiance, moment of silence, and the President of Council will handle administrative approvals, including the agenda, the minutes from the December 18th meeting, as well as the special meeting from January 2nd. They'll also recognize a retiring member of Council, as David Nanstead was not able to attend the December 18th meeting, and they'll swear in a new president pro tempore, all of that before approving the committee assignments. So these things tend to move quickly, but they set the tone for how the rest of the evening unfolds. After that, there will be a series of public hearings, 4, I believe, in total, on rezoning. These are big parcels of land along State Route 730, McKinn Road, and US 68 South being proposed for changes in zoning to light industrial. Public hearings are important because this is the point where residents get to speak on the record about how these changes might affect the community. And given some of the recent developments in the community, I anticipate this will be a lot of community members will be here to speak to those. And public hearings aren't routine. They're opportunities for voices to be heard and for City Council to gauge where people stand before any decisions are made. Following the public hearings, there's the public comment section of the meeting. And I anticipate that being well attended also. Looking forward to hearing what's shared there as well. In the public hearings, those comments have to be specific to the public hearing, to that particular parcel of land that's up for rezoning. So once we come to public comment, the City Council allows 3 minutes to anyone who would like to speak, and they can speak on any topic they like. So I anticipate the public comment being pretty robust as well. The thing about public comment is it's not a dialogue with council, but it's still one of the best ways for council members to connect with citizens' concerns and kind of keep up with issues that are happening and gaining traction with residents and topics that may continue to come up again and again. Next come reports from the elected and appointed officials, specifically including the mayor's State of the City report, which is mandated by statute, as well as updates from the auditor, the deputy law director, the service director, and the safety director. These reports can sometimes sound procedural, but they often contain the most current information about where projects stand and what is actually happening with city work. On the business side, there are several items that council will consider. These include a resolution expressing the intent to sell surplus property through an online auction service. This is necessary anytime the city has determined that a piece of equipment is at the end of its useful service and it's valued over $1,000. They can't just dispose of it. They have to go through council. There are also updates to classifications and salary ranges for city employees. Important, as it seems they're creating 2 new positions, code enforcement manager and a public information officer. I'm sure there will be discussion regarding both. There's also legislation accepting street and utility dedications in new subdivisions, one for Timber Glen and one for Creekview. That happens once a developer has completed a phase of their development. Most of these neighborhoods are planned out in multiple phases, and once a developer is done, they kind of dedicate everything and turn it back over to the city, and the city will maintain it from there. So I would anticipate there being more of those in the future as more houses and streets are completed. Of particular note, though, are the ordinances tied to the zoning changes we just discussed in the public hearings. So there is a first reading slated for each of the 4 parcels of property. Curious to see how public hearing comment and public comment kind of shape that discussion and decision as well. It's definitely an important thing. There's also a resolution authorizing the city to enter into an agreement with ODOT, Ohio Department of Transportation, for a state transportation project. And there is a supplemental appropriation authorizing money for a water plant improvement that has been in development for some time. That's most of the new business tonight. After the new business, council will hear committee reports and then financial reports, including the December 2025 income tax report as well as the annual 2025 income tax report. So in the month of December and the year end. Those are important and worth paying attention to because they reflect where the city's revenues stand, especially as the new year begins. There is an executive session scheduled, which, according to the agenda, is related to preparing for negotiations with city employees around compensation or terms of employments. Those discussions happen behind closed door by statute, but their existence can tell you what's coming up on labor or budget fronts. Often this signals nearing of the end of union negotiations and can mean that a new contract is to be expected soon. And that's the bulk of the agenda for this week. So, yeah, I hope this is helpful. As the podcast develops, my goal is to make episodes like this useful without being overwhelming. I want people to feel more informed heading into a meeting, but not buried in procedure or jargon or third readings and suspension of rules and all of that stuff. So if something on tomorrow night's agenda affects you directly, I encourage you to watch the meeting in person if you can, or follow along online. There's a link that the city sends out with the agenda. Local government works best when people understand how it functions and why decisions are made. This episode is the starting point. Future episodes will build from here. Thank you. Thanks for listening.